Hey guys, how you doing? Dervy here, and welcome to the updated patch 2.1 Dragoon guide. Here I will discuss the optimal rotations for the Dragoon as of patch 2.1, as well as talking a bit about the updated stat weights, the Dragoon best in sets, as well as the Dragoon pre-turn 5 best in sets. I'll try and keep this short as possible, as there are a lot of things that I have to discuss in this video. So let's get started. First up, we have the rotation. For this, we're going to my favourite dummy testing spot in the entire game, which is Western Thanalan near the Gate of Sultana. I'll break the rotation up into two parts, one being the bare bones rotation, so you can see the rotation in its most basic form, which will make it easier to practice and for you to follow, and then I'll go over the full rotation including the cooldowns. So here's a quick demonstration of the full rotation, just so you can see what the damage output and what the rotation looks like before we start taking it apart. In a full eye level 90 set, I peaked at 415 DPS at the end of the burst, and going down to 295 when I was reaching the end of the rotation, to where I would have been able to use my blood for blood and my jumps again, or my burst rotation, to maximise my DPS. That's incredibly high, much more so than what it was back in patch 2.0, quite simply because of the increase in damage for all of our abilities, and especially the 5% increase to the heavy thrust. The rotation itself looks rather complex, but it really isn't. It follows a semi-priority rotation, as shown in this image. The following image will allow you to maximize your DPS to the fullest. It looks rather strange, I know it looks kind of mishmash, but this image can actually be converted into a static rotation which follows this exact flow. So it starts off by us opening with heavy thrust. This is number one rule for all Dragoons, and now we're going to go into a chaos thrust rotation. So impulse drive, disembowel, and then chaos thrust. We then do a phlebotomize. We then go into true thrust, vorpal thrust, and then full thrust for our thrust rotation. We now do a heavy thrust, and now we work the rotation backwards. So now we do our full thrust rotation, a phlebotomize, and then we go into our chaos thrust rotation. And after this rotation's ended, we then keep our heavy thrust back up as it's about to run out. And now we're going to go back into true thrust, vorpal thrust, full thrust, phlebotomize. And as our chaos thrust is still up, we're then going to go into full thrust rotation, so true thrust, vorpal thrust, and full thrust. And now heavy thrust, and now we go back into chaos thrust, and we start the rotation over again. The whole idea of this rotation is to make sure that you constantly have buff docks ticking with zero downtime, whilst keeping your heavy thrust up 100% of the time and using your full thrust combo as a filler. If we were to put the rotation into a basic lettered rotation, it would look like this, where H is for heavy thrust, P is for phlebotomize, IDC is your chaos thrust rotation, and TTT is your thrust rotation. Memorizing this lettering system will make this rotation even easier for players to execute and perform. It is by far the most effective way to use your Dragoon rotations if you want the most optimal DPS. Yes, this rotation is rather tricky to pull off for certain bosses, but with a lot of practice you can alter this rotation to suit your needs and for certain bosses. You may notice that in comparison to the last rotation, we've stayed completely away from fracture. Quite simply, the buff of phlebotomize and chaos thrust completely outweighs any use from fracture. making Fracture now give us less DPS than this rotation. It is approximately 4 less DPS using Fracture in your rotation than using this rotation which I have shown you. Fracture is now completely redundant, but you could still keep it on your hotbar for bosses like Titan, where you need to keep your damage up as much as possible when you're still on the go avoiding bombs. Now, what about cooldowns? Well, using our cooldowns, which includes the buffs and our jumps, is known as our burst rotation. This rotation will give you the highest calculated DPS. You can use your cooldowns 2 ways. 1. Save them up for certain parts of bosses, like Twintania's 15-second conflags, or 2. Use the burst rotation whenever it is fully available if it's a DPS race, like Ultima Hard Mode for example. I'll use a slowed down clip for this rotation as it may get slightly tricky. Just like the normal Dragoon rotation, you'll want to use your cooldowns in between your rotations. So, we start off with a heavy thrust, and of course, just like the rotation that I showed you, you then want to go impulse drive, disembowel. Then after disembowel, you'll then want to start popping your blood for blood and your internal release. And you want to do these together. After you've done that, you then want to do chaos thrust, leg sweep, phlebotomize. After the phlebotomize, you want to go straight into a power surge. And now we're going to do our thrust rotation. So true thrust, then we jump, vorpal thrust, life surge, and after our life surge, we'll then want to use a full thrust. Now after you've used this full thrust, you can either use a spine shatter drive or a dragonfire dive. Now this all depends on which ability is available at the time. So if dragonfire dive is available, you'll want to use dragonfire dive. If it's not, you'll want to use your spine shatter drive. Even though the buff from internal release has clipped over a full thrust, which is already under the benefits of life surge crit, the timer along with the heavy thrust at the end of the rotation still allows for an increased chance to critical hit our target with a dragonfire dive, for an additional hit of 800. Of course, that is if you hit. I'll now show you 2 more burst rotations. This one, which I'm about to show you, is favoured by a few people on the Dragoon Rotation Reborn thread, but it is much harder to execute. So once again, you're going to go off and you're going to start off with your heavy thrust, and straight away you're going to then pop your blood for blood and then go into an impulse drive, pop your internal release, go into a disembowel, then you're going to go leg sweep, chaos thrust, then power surge. After power surge, you're then going to go into phlebotomize, jump, and now you're going to go into your full thrust rotation. So you're going to go true thrust, spine shatter drive, vorpal thrust, load up the life surge, go into a full thrust, and then you still should have enough time at the end of your internal release to do a crit dragonfire dive. The rotation I've just shown you easily does more DPS than the last rotation, simply because you're able to have an impulse drive and a disembowel which are both buffed up, together giving an overall more potency per second than the last rotation. However, there are situations wherein the first rotation is better suited. For example, if you're in turn 1 Corcadius, or turn 1 Coil, and you're starting that burst rotation, you're more than likely going to be popping the blood for blood while strafing behind for an impulse drive, only to be swiftly strafing back out using an internal release as you may get hit by the tail swipe. This could become extremely problematic to do so without proper practice, or for a player who does not use MMO mice with multiple buttons, or a player who is stuck clicking their cooldowns. The first rotation gives you a little extra setup time without any stress or worry about that tail sweep. The second rotation, the higher DPS rotation, can allow you to pull off a Dragon Fire Dive at the end of the rotation as long as you've perfectly timed all of your cooldowns. You should have 1.5 seconds after the full thrust on your internal release, which is more than enough time to get that above Dragon Fire Dive into your opponent. As I've said, this rotation is much trickier and is best suited for players who are using MMO mice, but it is possible to do so clicking it, as I've just shown you if you're fast enough with your mouse. However, the difficulty for this rotation is greatly balanced by the extreme power. I'd recommend this rotation for longer burst nuking fights, such as the last stage of Twintania before her Hardened Rage or Dreadnought killing in turn 4 coil. The final rotation is the simplest rotation of all three. This rotation does in fact do the lowest DPS out of all three rotations in longer boss fights, but it is most favoured for instances where you need absolute maximum DPS in the shortest time possible, such as bursting down the 15-second conflags from Twintania. So as always, you pop your heavy thrust first, and then you're going to go into Blood for Blood and internal release together, and then you're going to go into your thrust rotation straight away. So you go True Thrust, and then Power Surge, Vorpal Thrust, Life Surge, then you're going to go Full Thrust, Jump. Now after you've jumped, you're going to go and then do another round of your thrust rotation. So this time you do True Thrust, Leg Sweep, Vorpal Thrust, Spine Shatter Drive, and then you're going to go Full Thrust, and then you can end it with a Dragon Fire Dive. It is worth noting that none of the endgame bosses, other than the Ifrit hard mode, can be stunned, so feel free to use your stun abilities as extra DPS for coil or extreme mode fights. So then, seeing as there are actually quite a lot of people interested in the math behind this game, as seen by the stats weights video I did a while back, I'll show you guys some more in-depth maths and theory crafting for a Dragoon. If there is enough demand, I will also get around doing some maths and or theory crafting for the monk and the bard. If I find some raw numbers, I'll try to get around to do some for the black mage and the summoner, but I'm not going to guarantee anything, nor will I do any rotations, as I'm not really a monk or a bard player. So we'll bring up the Theory Crafter's #1 utility, the Excel spreadsheet. This is a miniature table that I use to note down all of the updated stat weights in patch 2.1, which have been calculated. I give all credits for all of these stat weights to Easy Mode X on the Dragoon Rotation Reborn thread on the official forums, as him and his team has done a fantastic job of updating all of the stat weights for all three of these DPS jobs since the release of this game. There will be a link posted in the description for you guys to see, as there's insane amounts of theory crafting going on in that thread, and I really do suggest people go have a look at it because things get changed daily. So here's where the math comes into play. This is a table that is calculated for a Dragoon. Currently the stat weights are based off the ratio of 1 of X stat and strength. So as a Dragoon, if we look at the comparison between weapon damage and strength, we can see that 1 point of weapon damage is equivalent to 8.488 of strength. 1 point of determination is valued at 0.323 points of strength. Determination weighs much higher than critical hit rate and skill speed. This is because of how determination is calculated into the formula. However, one thing to note is that the higher determination value that we have, the more crit and skill speed become. So I believe in the near future, these stat weights will easily change as the higher eye level gears introduced into the game, like AF2 and Allegan 2, which is coming in patch 2.2, or even when the character level is increased. This spreadsheet allows me to accurately calculate how much a gear weighs. By weight, I mean the calculated overall DPS value a set of armor will deal. The higher the score, the more calculated DPS value the set will give us. Please note, I am not saying this will do more DPS. The values of these sets of gear are the highest calculated DPS value you can output. Your actual damage in game will vary depending on your luck with crits, the RNG of your weapon skills, as well as the encounter you're facing up against. It is worth noting the impact of critical hit rate. Stacking critical hit rate does in fact have diminishing returns, contrary to belief. For example, a boost from 5 to 6 critical hit rating gives us a damage increase of 0.49%. Going from 50 to 51 critical hit rate only gives us an increase of 0.40%. And going from 99 to 100% is only a 0.33% increase. Therefore, we can assume that as we stack critical hit rate, we're lowering the calculated stat weight value of critical hit rate, making it less and less important. I can also incorporate food into the spreadsheet. So for example, I'm using buttons and blanket HQ, which gives us a total of 2% crit with a max of 10 and 5% determination with a max value of 16. So to demonstrate, we'll calculate the stat weight value for determination in this Dragoon set. Just to show you how it works. This set has a total determination value of 115, excluding our base stats. The base stats for determination for all races and all jobs is 202. But as we're working at the raw determination of the set, we do not wish to inflate any of our numbers, so we're keeping the maths only with our gear sets. So quite simply, we do 159, which is the determination from all of our overall gear sets, and we multiply it by our calculated stat weight for determination, which is 0.323. This gives us a number of 51.375. You then do the same to your weapon damage, critical hit rate, skill speed, and this will then give you your total calculated stat weight. For this exact set, it is 692.053. For food, however, it is very different. When calculating food, you must incorporate your total stats. This is because you want to ensure you're getting the maximum bonus of your food. If you only calculate food buffs using your raw gear stats, you'll just be greatly devaluing your calculation for food, giving you an incorrect stat weights. So in this set, the true determination with our food buff is 175. This is calculated by adding our gear set determination of 159 plus the base determination, which is 202. We then multiply this number by the percentage boost from the food, 5%, or as a raw number it is 0.05, giving us a grand total of 18.05. However, because this number exceeds the maximum boost from our food, which is 16, we'll only gain 16 determination from using buttons and blankets HQ with this set. We will then add this number to the total determination value of our gear set, which is 159. This gives us a grand total of 175. Now, if we were to calculate the stat weight of this set with the food, this maximum boost of 16 is then multiplied by our determination stat weight of 0.32, giving us 5.168. So now, if we add 5.168 together with 51.357, we get a total determination value, including food, of 56.525, which you can see on the right side of this table. So now that I've shown you how stat weights are used to calculate the DPS value of gear sets, I'll show you a series of best in sets. The reason why I like to show you many different sets is because many people will use different sets based on the situation they're in. There is no true best in set for Dragoon as of making this video. The reasoning behind this is because people are still working out the true accuracy cap for turn 5. It's been speculated to be 472 for Twintania, 482 for turn 5 snakes, or even as low as 463 for Dragoon for all content. And of course, there are guilds or players who dare face the might of Twintania, or those simply who haven't killed it yet, or gotten their elegant spear. So as a result, I'll be showing you 6 different sets. They'll all be the best in sets for the Dragoon, meeting the 482 accuracy requirements with buttons and blankets. This set will meet the speculated maximum accuracy cap, including snakes for turn 5. There will also be a set for 472 accuracy with buttons and blankets to meet the accuracy cap for Twintania. Then there's a set I'm personally going for, a set which reaches 465 accuracy set. This set is special to me, as not only it is the highest DPS set which can do all content up to turn 4 with 0 misses with maximum DPS, but using button mushroom sautés you can meet the Twintania accuracy cap of 472. But before I show you these sets, I will show you the pre-turn 5 equivalent best in sets which meet those accuracy requirements. This gives us 6 total sets. You can check out the description box below to see all of the gear sets I'll be showing you. So first up, we have the pre-turn 5 482 BiS set. This set uses the Gaebulb Zenith, the Worm's Armit, Worm's Mail, Elegant Gauntlets of Maiming, Hero's Belt of Maiming, Elegant Trousers of Maiming, and the Worm's Greaves. And for accessories, we have the Elegant Choker of Striking, Tremor Earrings of Striking, Hero's Bracelet of Slaying, Hero's Ring of Slaying, and the Elegant Ring of Striking. This set gives us a grand total of 46 weapon damage, 498 strength, which is if you are a Highlander, higher, like I am, 440.64 critical hit rate if you're using food, which is buttons and blankets, a skill speed of 389, and a total determination of 333.9 with the boost from food. Now if we were going to convert this into actual DPS, we can see that at 100 potency we are dealing 61.557 DPS. Remember, this is at 100 potency, it does not calculate your true DPS, but rather it is your baseline DPS that you will be dealing. Next up, we have the pre-turn 5 472 best in slot. This is the Gaebulb Zenith, Elegant Visor of Maiming, the Worm's Mail, Elegant Gauntlets of Maiming, Elegant Tassets of Maiming, Elegant Trousers of Maiming, the Worm's Greaves, and for the accessories, the Elegant Choker of Striking, Tremor Earrings, Hero's Bracelet of Slaying, Hero's Ring of Slaying, and the Elegant Ring of Maiming. This gives us a grand total of 46 weapon damage, 496 strength, 431.46 crit with food, 405 skill speed, and 337 determination with food. And as you can see, this gives us a grand total of 65.632 DPS at 100 potency. So now for the Dragoon pre-turn 5 465 accuracy set, we're using the Gaebulb Zenith, Elegant Visor of Maiming, the Worm's Mail, Worm's Gauntlets, Hero's Belt of Maiming, Elegant Trousers of Maiming, Worm's Greaves, Elegant Choker of Maiming, Tremor Earrings of Striking, Hero's Bracelet of Slaying, Hero's Ring of Slaying, and the Elegant Ring of Maiming. This gives us a grand total of 46 weapon damage, 498 strength, 442.68 crit, 404 skill speed, and 337 determination. If we now go back to Volky's DPS calculator, we can see that we have a grand DPS total of 65.606 DPS at 100 potency. But what if we're using button mushroom sautés with this 465 accuracy set? We now get a grand total of 46 weapon damage, 468 strength, 434 critical hit rate, 404 skill speed, and 334 determination. And now if we run this into Volky's damage calculator, we now have a crit adjusted total DPS of 65.59 DPS at 100 potency. Now we're going to go to the Dragoon BiS sets, which include the turn 5 gear. So this is the set for the 482 accuracy. So we have the Elegant Spear, the Worm's Armor, the Worm's Mail, Worm's Gauntlets, Hero's Belt of Maiming, Elegant Trousers of Maiming, Elegant Solarates of Aiming, Elegant Choker of Maiming, Elegant Earrings of Maiming, Hero's Bracelet of Slaying, Elegant Ring of Maiming, and the Elegant Ring of Striking. This gives us a grand total of 47 weapon damage, 501 strength, 410.4 critical hit rate with food, 383 skill speed, and 366 determination with food. If we now go to Volky's DPS calculator, this gives us a crit adjusted DPS of 66.693 at 100 potency. Now we have the BiS set for 472 accuracy. So we have the Elegant Spear, the Worm's Armor, the Worm's Mail, Elegant Gauntlets of Maiming, Hero's Belt of Maiming, Elegant Trousers of Maiming, Elegant Solarates of Maiming, Hero's Necklace of Slaying, Tremor Earrings of Striking, Hero's Bracelet of Slaying, Elegant Ring of Maiming, and the Elegant Ring of Striking. This gives us a grand total of 47 weapon damage, 501 strength, 426.36 critical hit rate, 368 skill speed, and 369 determination with food. If we now put this into Volky's damage calculator, we have a crit adjusted overall DPS of 66.748 DPS at 100 potency. And now we have the final BiS set, which goes for 465 accuracy. This is the set that I will be going for. So we have the Elegant Spear, the Worm's Armor, Worm's Mail, Elegant Gauntlets of Maiming, Hero's Belt of Maiming, Elegant Trousers of Maiming, Elegant Solarates of Maiming, Elegant Choker of Striking, Tremor Earrings of Striking, Hero's Bracelet of Slaying, Hero's Ring of Maiming, and the Elegant Ring of Striking. This gives us a grand total of 47 weapon damage, 501 strength, 402 critical hit rate, or 410.04 with food, 384 skill speed, and 377 determination with food. If we now go to Volky's damage calculator, this gives us a grand total of 67.02 crit adjusted DPS at 100 potency. And now if we're going to look at this gear set using button mushroom sautés, we now find ourselves having 47 weapon damage, 501 strength, 402 critical hit rate, 384 skill speed, and 374 determination. This gives us a grand total of 66.422 DPS at 100 potency. And as I said guys, there will be a list for all of the gear sets that I've shown you, and they'll be linked to FFXIV as a wardrobe, so you can just go through there, click on one of the links, and they will all be there for you guys to see and take notes as to what the actual gears are if you haven't really paid attention to this video. And that pretty much covers this video guys. I know it was rather long, but as I said at the beginning of this video, there was quite a lot of things that I had to fit in. So I'll also be doing coverage of the next live letter, which will be on the 25th of January. This will be about patch 2.2, and it will be covering the Leviathan. We'll be covering the expansion for the Burning Core of Bahamut, as well as the new dungeon called the Ruins of Amdapor. And yeah, I really cannot wait for this expansion, and I genuinely do hope that the expansion for the coil of turn 6 onwards will be extremely difficult. So guys, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.